I wonder why I was taken for moderation of this particular topic. Was it linked to my physique or I don't know. But so normally when I'm coming to Nutrify C-suite and there's a panel discussion, Brijesh is there, we've interacted. So I don't have to prepare very much. But this time there's a very illustrious and diverse panel. And because of my personal interest in obesity, I prepared a list of questions, huge list of questions. And I got swamped into, which questions should I ask, what should I do? And we have a very, very diverse panel. So that's why I'm carrying this slip. Because not like a cheat sheet, but something which I said, okay, let's curate. And if there's some time, maybe one-on-one also we'll connect on that. So the topic is the hunger code. And this is a pre-lunch topic. And what is GLP-1 teaching us about obesity, metabolic health and control? I think the whole world and India has exploded in the last pioneering work done by Novo Nordisk. So we have a very diverse panel. So we have from the pharma sector, we have Vikrant Shrotriya, who is the Managing Director of Novo Nordisk India. He has worked across various geographies. I think the Middle East, Southeast Asia, Singapore. And the last 20 odd years you've been with Novo Nordisk, right? So very, very deep experience across various geographies. And today it's a pleasure to have him on the panel. We have Dr. Dana Cohen. Now, she is an integrative medicine practitioner. That's a new one for me. And when I went through your profile, she is based out of Manhattan, New York, and she sees a lot of patients. She's a practicing integrative medicine practitioner. And very importantly, I think her website says she's one of New York's best kept secrets for that. So I'm trying to keep the discussion very professional. I just want to leap on to, picking all of your brains. And we have Dr. Greg McPherson. Again, a very interesting profile. He is a co-founder, I think SRW is one of your companies which you have co-founded. But what interested me was that he is a longevity specialist. And you have done a lot of work at the mitochondrial level of aging and longevity. So I was first trying to read more on that. And I wanted to read that book also. So we have here an integrated medical practitioner, we have a pharma specialist, and we have a longevity expert. Now you imagine that what are the questions I can ask. Okay, so shall we start? So because I come from pharma, so Vikrant, I will start with pharma.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
GLP-1 has exploded. I mean, it has exploded. But what is it that you are seeing? We knew about obesity, right? And we talked about obesity, gym, diet, fats. But how has GLP-1 changed the perception of obesity in the medical and the general practitioner in India, as per your views?
Well, thank you very much and pleasure to be here. I think the topic is a little wrong. It should not be the hunger code. We are all looking for satiety code, if at all. Hardly there would be very few people who have not battled obesity in this room. And I'm very sure that right in the morning, whether it is breakfast, lunch or dinner, when we are eating, we are very cautious about what we are eating, because the world is grappling with not undernutrition, actually it is overnutrition. It's a flood of calories which is available. It's the least inflationary item on earth. We have probably become 5 times in terms of the population, but food has been always plenty, though the arable land has reduced. So the arable land has reduced, food has become plenty, calories have become plenty, and rightfully the nutrition is deficient. So everybody probably grapples with the problem, unlike some of the malnutrition world. And obesity is nothing new, and you said it right. We all know about it. Most of the time we are aware, but we also try to be neglecting it. At least in some parts of the world from where at least I come, if I go to Delhi, I am a Delhi person, and I live in Bangalore. It is never that my mother says to me that you are actually eating more. Every time it is about some extra chapati
Yes.
or some extra rice full of
yes.
carbohydrates and becoming a little bit chubby. And we call in Hindi called golu molu, like, a roundish face, is something a signal of a good life. While we have got a doctor on the left of us who is talking about lifespan, and I am a big fan of health span, because lifespan has been probably now being achieved quite a lot, and people can be on ventilator for ages together. But what about the health span? So what happened in obesity area is, while being aware, we all only saw something called the ping pong. You gain and you lose. It's a battle of calorie, and it's
Correct.
a battle of spending calories exercise. And that balance, single word, is seldom achieved. Work-life balance is also not achieved. Many of the balances in life are the most difficult striking point we all struggle with. With that in mind, we were working on proteins for ages together. And when we came across the GLP-1 for diabetes, we were very happy that the glycemic control was being achieved. But surprisingly, the early 20s gave us the result that not only diabetes, it is also reducing obesity, where most of the pharma companies actually struggled, and nobody dared to go into that area like Alzheimer's today. True. And with that in mind, when the treatment came, the narrative changed. People also started understanding, don't blame the individual. You don't blame an individual for hypertension, for diabetes, for cancer. There is something more than this called biology taking over your gut, or you can say grit and determination of not eating.
Right.
And that's where it changed the entire narrative, and it brought now 12% of the adults, at least in the US, have actually used GLP-1. 27% of the households have used GLP-1. And the result is that whether it is the beverage or the Walmarts, or you can say the pizzas or the coffee chains, they are actually sizing up their portions and the clothing line as per the GLP-1, and not to the last piece of it, the narrative change. First time ever, we saw the bending of the curve of obesity from 39.7% last year, dropping down to 37% in the US. And that's a big victory against something which was looking invincible, at least for me and my family. I have never seen anybody having the less waist size than what it was 5 years ago. So imagine something being bent like that is unimaginable, and that has changed the narrative. I mean, there is a lot of story, but keeping in mind for the other speakers, thank you very much for the opportunity.
That's when he was talking about the one thing which I took forward, the concept of what he was talking about, arable land reducing. So I'm based out of Gurgaon. So when you see that farming land is reducing, buildings are coming up, but the food production is going high, and you talked about that nutrition part of it. That resonated very powerfully. So Dana, coming to you, he's talking about the obesity curve reducing, and you are seeing patients in New York, right? So you would be seeing patients who have taken GLP-1. Many, right? So is it that we are solving a problem and we are sort of unleashing some new problems from a patient point of view? What would you say?
Yeah. So I also have notes so I don't forget anything because I'm going on sleep deprivation. But yes, so GLP-1s are a miracle. I've never seen anything like it. I've spent my entire career, close to 30 years, treating obesity. I started my career right out of residency with Dr. Atkins, the diet doctor.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
so my whole life, my whole career, I've been putting patients on diets, talking about weight loss. And what I've learned is that it doesn't work. No diets don't work. They don't work they just don't. They work short term. And what I also think is that, and when I say integrative medicine, I'm an internist. I'm a medical doctor, fully trained, licensed. Right. That's, I know how to read studies, and when integrative means we integrate the best of both worlds: lifestyle, nutrition, and farm.
Yeah.
And we need that. We need more doctors like this, because there is a place where it converges. Mm-hmm. So GLP-1s are currently, in my opinion, not being used properly. There are these clinics that are popping up prescribing GLP-1s, not giving any coaching, any advice, and they work. They work in the short term, and I think we're still not addressing what patients need as far as learning how to change habits, learning how to read labels, learning how to take supplements, and I, especially in maybe the Indian population where there's a lot of vegetarians, maybe low income, and they're starting off at a deficit, now eating low calories, and it's going to be escalating that problem. Mm-hmm. But and I think most of us know, the big problems are muscle preservation. So yes, there's weight loss, and I'm going to be honest, even in my population of patients seek me out who are already motivated, already knowledgeable. And even in those patients, when I put them on a GLP-1, they come back to me and I ask them, what are you eating? They're still eating really crappy diets because they can.
Is it?
Yes, I see it all the time, because they can. They're still losing the weight and they're still eating the junk. So it's so important that we have these conversations with them, that we spread this news, that we talk about all of these things. So the muscle preservation is the biggest thing. We have to make it an absolute priority. It's not just about weight loss. The number doesn't matter. It's the muscle preservation that matters the most. That's where we get our metabolism.
Okay, yeah, and thanks. I mean, that's an insight, because I thought if somebody's spending a lot on GLP-1 drugs, they would be taking a little bit of care with their diet. Or is it that, they're feeling, oh, now let the drug take care of itself. I lead my life the way it is. That's what the drug is there for. This was a bit of an insight. Greg, coming to you, she talked about muscle preservation, right? Now, I know it's too early, but you can also say that when we are seeing muscle preservation, in some of the cases it's supposed to be, the loss is supposed to be reversible, like sarcopenia and all that. But do you see this from a longevity perspective? Do we build a aging perspective from a cellular level? Is there some angle of that which is coming into this?
Yeah, look, I think it's just such an interesting drug sector. And the fact that we can shift appetite is absolutely fantastic, because for people with obesity, they've got a shorter health span anyway. So the ability to be able to, create that change and create that physical change is absolutely brilliant. But it comes with a significant issue, and we've talked about that. It's the muscle mass. And from a longevity perspective, muscle mass loss just happens as we age. The sarcopenia. And muscle is just such an important organ. It's so important for metabolism, for just being a buffer, essentially, for some of the elements of life that can, cause us challenges. So I think it's really important, to your point, Dana, about how we treat these patients, is that we do need the GLP-1s. That's fantastic. But we need to be very conscious around how do we maintain muscle mass. And what's I find very interesting as well is that some of the longevity conferences that I'm going to, is that there are so many signals that GLP-1s are actually possibly one of the first longevity interventions that we're seeing. There are signals around the epigenome showing that it's beneficial. So in practice, and what the opportunity is, I think, for the nutraceutical industry is, how do we address the GLP-1 agonist weaknesses? So that's about protein, and I think we're seeing that now protein sales are going incredibly high. But we also need to think about mitochondrial health,
Right.
Because there's a lot of stress there.
Mhm.
Obviously, healthy muscles have a lot of healthy mitochondria. This is really,
Right.
really important.
Right.
And then, lastly, beyond the mitochondria, is essentially just helping people change their behaviors consistently. And we do need to make sure these people are getting adequate nutrition. So again, there's just so many opportunities for the nutraceutical space to step in. And you were saying around a quarter of the households are using GLP-1s. Well, that's a quarter of the households in America that if we can solve the problems around the side effects, then there's just, it's probably an opportunity bigger than GLP-1s.
Oh my God, that's a powerful statement. That we are not. If we solve the other problems, it's a very big opportunity, which is beyond a GLP-1 market estimation kind of thing which you're mentioning. Then I just want to go back to one of the things you mentioned, that in terms of the Indian diet, where we don't look at me when I'm talking over here. We are looking. We have protein. Sorry. Arey boss, see, they talked about waist circumference. The moment when Vikrant talked about waist circumference and looked at my waist circumference, I wanted to button my jacket, but it would not go through. So I'm leaving it open. So we are mostly protein deficient, right? And muscles is proteins. How concerned should we, over here in India, when a patient is taking GLP, how worried should we be about this?
Well, very concerned, going back to everything we just said. First, I just have to say, though, what we've learned from GLP-1s, it's pharmacological proof that, willpower is not, it's not our fault. And who knows, what you've been brought up on, what you've been exposed to. These are the things that, it's not necessarily our faults so we have to stop that blame and there's no individual responsibility. Like it's such a big picture, right? So the Indian diet is I don't claim to know it. It's funny because I think about, I've had Indian patients in my practice in New York many times, and I can remember years of hounding them and pushing them. You have to stop the carbs, less carbs, to the point where I think I've created eating disorders in patients as a doctor. I think as an industry of integrative functional medicine doctors, we've done that. And once the bigger picture is looking at real food, whole food, less ultra processed foods. I mean, that's really what it all comes down to is, and it's not necessarily about the individual diet unless you're getting those Franken foods, what the gentleman had called it earlier. So more protein in the vegetarian patients, maybe that's a big opportunity here. And I have to say, patients are fatigued of protein shakes. And,
oh, yes.
So I recently saw somewhere, and I can't remember where I saw it, a gummy and I don't know if it was multiple gummies, that gave you something like 80 grams of protein, full nutrient, full amino acid, a complete amino acid blend, maybe leucine forward, but that's where the opportunity lies in these people who are on GLP-1s, eating very low calories, and this is the opportunity, I think, here for everyone.
For everyone who's over here. So, Vikrant, I mean, the India perspective, right? What has happened in the last 6 months. I think some of our clients also would be here. Every company is launched generic company as generic versions of the drug, and somewhere, I mean, we are also seeing that what they call, I'm not taking the brand names, you having now packages at beauty parlors, that bridal packages, that if you give this, with the GLP-1, you will lose weight. So there's a lot of potential of misuse which is happening, and I think even the government is in talks with making sure that the general practitioner cannot prescribe a GLP-1. Now, as pharma, what should be some of the ethical red lines we should not be crossing in our quest for taking this opportunity?
Yeah, I think first of all, what has happened to Ozempic, Wegovy, and the rest of the other GLP-1 is mostly led by the consumers because they never experienced something that before.
Right,
They just could not find a treatment
right.
for obesity. And the same also started happening also in India. The Instagram community, the Facebook community, they started talking about it. But in India, the realities are very, very different. If you really ask me as a farmer man, I'm more concerned with 250 million people with obesity and with central obesity, 351 million people. And we always deny medication. It's very difficult to, in fact, even to give my brother who deserves this medication because there is a lot of denial for rightful candidate in India rather than very minor population going and trying to access it for beautification. So on one side, we have a concern of abuse, but abuse at this point of a time, by and large, is a minor problem, and there we put a caution that it's not a quick fix. So that's one thing.
Yes.
Very important because it's never a quick fix. It's also like what doctor said. It's not you can say you take the pill and don't eat.
Exactly.
It's not a license to eat. All right. It is something which needs an integrated solution. It's not a panacea. Okay. It is a coach. It is something which was not available yesterday, and now it comes in your hand for that goal which you wanted to achieve. So we as a pharma or responsible company, and like many others, we actually strongly lobby against any kind of a misuse of this medication. In fact, the use of this medication is enough to profit from this medication. With such a large population,
Oh, yes.
I think for me, access is a big issue in India. Like when it is restricted to only the endocrinologist and the MD physician, you imagine the per capita coverage. You have only 10 doctors per district in India.
Correct.
How you will take control of obesity when you have got a general obesity to the tune of 24% in India? Imagine hypertension and diabetes being taken care only by the specialist. So to get a prescription, one has to spend more to get a prescription. So again, it's a balance. So while we are talking about a misuse, I think that is one thing which probably as a responsible company nobody should do, and we actually strongly advocate not to use. But on the other side, there is also a question about the higher access which requires more awareness and more usage of these drugs. But judiciously, an integrated approach.
That integrated approach, and I think what you mentioned about the central obesity, like I'm not I'm the obesity victim, but I'm not the expert on obesity. But there's something, we have the thrifty gene, where as Indians we tend to gain a lot more weight because we live through heritages of plenty of food available, then starvation, and the body conserves a lot of fat, and we take a lot of central obesity, and it's not confined only to metros. I think that's what you're saying.
We call it thin fat Indian.
Thin fat.
So I'm 67 kg weight, and put a Caucasian who is 67 kg weight, and despite all the exercise and diet and still look quite fit, my fat percentage will be higher. And if it is still same, my visceral fat, central obesity will be higher. And if it is still same, my ectopic fat around the organ surely will be higher. And that's basically the epigenetics, what you talk about. It's very difficult to beat. But yes, we can arrest, and we can delay, and we can change these kind of gains.
So coming to you, Greg, and see, this was my list of prepared questions. I have lost the script totally because I'm just now reading. So Greg, when in New Zealand, where which you're seeing. So we are all looking at obesity as a opportunity and as something. Uh, I had heard something about this ingredient called berberine. They call it nature's Ozempic, if I can use that word. Uh, how is that the next El Dorado, or are there any other El Dorados which you see opportunities which would be coming?
Yeah, like I love berberine. It's in a couple of my products. I think it's a phenomenal product. It's in there just because it's an AMPK activator,
Right.
which just has generally longevity benefits. But as a natural Ozempic, I want to push back a little bit because I think that yes, it has got some GLP benefits, AMPK, etc. But really, in the context of GLP-1s, they are just so effective that it's very difficult for berberine to kind of replace it naturally.
Okay.
However, I think for the industry, it is a fantastic opportunity because this is something that could be taken alongside Ozempic and perhaps smooths out some of the challenges and perhaps can just amplify a few of the benefits of GLP-1s.
Mhm.
But I think really if we're building a stack that's going to be supporting patients that are on these products.
Can you just make that clear? The last sentence?
Sorry?
No, the last sentence which you mentioned, I didn't get that.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that as part of a stack of different supplements that you can take.
Okay, got it.
That we can't be a GLP-1 agonist. So let's look at how we position ourselves adjacent to that because there are so many different side effects around just nausea that we can layer in there. Again, we were talking about protein before. I think this is important. When you lose muscle mass, especially in older adults who are resistant to putting more muscle back on after it, then we really we've got to do our job properly and actually help them preserve that muscle mass. So
there it would help more, berberine you were saying, for the older patients.
So a little berberine, a little protein, and then mitochondrial support because they get a hammering when we lose muscle mass.
Right.
And then there are some really interesting ingredients like HMB that are muscle sparing. And so HMB is a metabolite, and it prevents muscle breakdown and encourages muscle growth, essentially. This is a compound that was used in hospitals to prevent people who were basically stuck in bed from losing muscle mass. Yes. So these are a huge opportunity to present products, have doctors co-prescribe, and essentially, if we do it right, lose fat and maintain lean muscle mass. And if we're doing that, then what we're doing is we're going to increase health span, lifespan, and then we've got it. So for nutraceutical sector, just a huge opportunity.
Right. In fact, what he mentioned, what Greg mentioned about HMBs, as most of you would be knowing, you have formulations in the country which are of salts of calcium and calcium salts of HMB, which is now being pushing a lot into sarcopenia as thing, and people are realizing that I think what is coming from the expert panel that muscle loss is one of your critical factors for GLP-1 usage. So I think we will be running a bit out of time, and I have this habit of yakking. So I'll just one question. So you mentioned about responsible obesity management, and we have various stakeholders over here. My question is, how do we build the ecosystem? And you have investors here, you have nutraceutical experts here. How does this community build a responsible obesity management ecosystem? What are some of the first few steps that they can work together? Pharma, Nutra, investors. I know this is a big one. Maybe one bite from each one of you would help.
Well, it has to start with doctors because we're prescribing. So I think educating physicians, specifically in nutraceuticals, I think that's really important, and having them understand the manufacturing and the science behind it, much like a pharmaceutical company does. Maybe starting there could be worthwhile.
with evidence and with protocol like that.
Evidence-based and protocols. There are a lot of bad players in this field.
Right.
And I think, I think starting from there and having doctors on board and understanding we don't get this training in school.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even get much less food training in school. But nutraceutical training, there's barely any. And I've been prescribing nutraceuticals since I started out of residency. So I think that understanding, it has to come from doctors as opposed to influencers, and patients are demanding it. So I think maybe starting with educating physicians
would be the first thing. Vikrant, your views?
I think we have to work at every inflection point. Come with me. There is a work to be done at an awareness level. Prime Minister Modi also talked about Fit India, obesity to be curbed. There is a lot of work which needs to be done. The myths, we have to demystify what obesity is. I think there is a lot of work to be done at a treatment level, whether it is diet, exercise, or medication. Alone, nothing is sufficient. It's a triangle approach, and that's called holistic approach, which is actually required. And the third thing is, we need to have an outcome approach. Obesity is not a culprit. The culprit is the 225 diseases which come because of obesity. Doctor just now mentioned a person with a BMI above 40 is half likely to achieve the age of 70 if they remain at a 40 BMI and above. So I think it has to be outcome based. So these are the three things which are very, very important, tackling the burden of obesity.
I take that outcome approach, which is very, very critical. Greg, over to you.
Okay, it's Vikram mentioned. I think exercise is so important. So as a sector, we need to create products which are going to help solve the problem. But I think it's our responsibility as well to encourage people to live well, to exercise, to do all these activities which are going to be beneficial regardless of taking these products or not. So we've got this incredible tool, which means that people are going to lose weight. Now we need to set them up for success, and therein is the opportunity. And I think looking, I guess, up at 40,000 feet, we're about to get a whole lot of peptides coming at us. So from a nutraceutical company or industry perspective, I think it's buckle up and let's support these people through their health journey and assist them beyond the pharmaceuticals towards optimal health.
Great. So we are close to ending this. So a couple of take-homes. GLP-1 is not about miracle. Please, those patients who are taking it, get your lifestyle back on track. Just because you're paying for the drug doesn't mean that you make the drug work hard. Number two, no single approach is enough. I think the need for collaboration is extremely, extremely important, and all of your stakeholders in this over here. It's not about, it has to be an integrated approach. Number three is for nutraceuticals, and we have been discussing this in the previous C-suite also. Nutraceuticals is not just about making a good product, it's about building evidence. Then only it becomes collaborative. Then only it becomes that. Nutraceuticals cannot be just, whether you take it or don't take it, it will work or not work. I think that's one of the key take-homes which you're taking. Thank you for reinforcing that. I don't know whether we have time for questions, but one take-home I will take from here, that my lunch will be of salads, and that is what I will have. Right? Thank you so much. Any question? Do we have time for a question or so? Sir, 2 days I've been having salads. I first thought I'll grow horns and I'll start mowing. There are so many salads. Right. Any questions? Any? Yes, please.
Thank you for that fascinating conversation. It makes me think about opportunities beyond weight loss. I know that was the topic tonight, but what are your thoughts about things beyond weight loss, interventions for, say, IBS or infertility? Where are we at in terms of research and opportunities for GLP-1s to play a role in things like that?
Well, I don't have the exact, you probably have a better answer, but it just makes me think about, recently PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome,
Yeah.
was renamed,
POS,
polyendocrine,
PMOs, polymetabolic,
endocrine, what is it, polymetabolic?
PMOs.
And so it is a whole system,
Yes.
and I think that's where most of us doctors go wrong. We're so focused on one thing that we're not looking at the bigger picture and a multi-systems approach. So yes, I think there's room for that, and I think that's.
Yes, please.
Yes, hi. As it relates to GLP-1s, what is your overall vision in terms of side effects long-term, general sense long-term, as far as not only the efficacy and benefits of these products, but what do you see as it relates to rebound, weight gain, risks, etc., and just a general perspective? And this is for everyone up there.
So I'm sorry, I'm going to answer first because in my practice and my philosophy, I tell patients, first and foremost, as with everything, with every supplement I put them on, with every medication I put them on, ideally the lowest possible dose that you feel that works, and for the shortest time possible. I haven't yet seen it because it's still so new. I mean, I've been prescribing for probably three years now, and it's rare that I've gotten a patient completely off of it, but we are learning new things every day, and we're learning that maybe it's not necessarily lowering the dose to the lowest possible dose, but maybe extending the time in between doses. We don't have the answer yet for that, but I think we're working on it, and it's something that's always in the back of my mind.
But it's a fantastic question because the medication, now the trials are out, the GLP-1 maintenance has to be taken. It's never that a person takes the GLP-1, withdraws, then there is a tendency of weight gain back again. Mostly the clinical trials have resulted in 75% of the weight gain happens. But that happens even with hypertension, diabetes. If it is a disease, if it's a problem, then we say it is a chronic management of the weight, and that we never forget to tell the patients. But other than the other thing, I would say that there are 50 million patients experience now with GLP-1. While we are talking in this hall as a new drug, it is there in the market for more than a decade. Yeah. With 50 million, patient experience, and it has now been proven in, CKD, CVD, MASH, phenomenal results. And we just now saw the PMOS. Actually, many of these indications are coming. We are talking about IBS. Actually, there are even trials happening in the area of IBS along with GLP-1. So it's getting into multiple therapeutic area. But again, like any medication, it is still 10 years. You never know what can come after that.
Wait, I just want to push back a little bit because unfortunately, pharma will say that. And I never say never. If we do, you and us as doctors do a good enough job at learning a patient's relationship to food, teaching them new habits, teaching them to exercise, educating, we may be able to get them off of this. We don't know. So I'm hopeful.
Love this.
So one other part to that question, and the gentleman on the far right, I think you were going to speak, so I don't want to interrupt you.
I was just going to say it's potentially an opportunity for the pharma industry because there's lots of side effects from the GLP-1s, but there are a few other peptides that maybe you'll be able to mix in there and actually get maintain your muscle mass, actually avoid some of the downfalls of these conditions. So I think that the chapter is only starting to be written, and the book is probably a decade away.
So that was the other part of my question, was as it relates to loss of lean muscle when on a GLP-1. So for the panel, just recommendations from that perspective to maintain that lean muscle, because I'm sure we've all seen people that they've lost a considerable amount of weight, but in some instances they look like skeletons because they've lost that lean muscle as well. So any suggestions or recommendations from that standpoint?
Look, I'm just a huge fan of just getting to the gym, right? I just don't think you can escape that. And I also believe that we should be looking at supporting mitochondrial health in these patients. And I think also perhaps the clinician is somewhat responsible for overdosing of this. You can go so far, and there just needs to be some common sense applied to the supply of these medicines.
Great. Thank you so much.